Tails are one of the most useful features in the animal kingdom. Balance, communication, temperature regulation, apes have them, monkeys have them, but somewhere in our evolutionary history, humans didn't just lose our tails, we actively got rid of them, on purpose. And the reason reveals something disturbing about how we became human. Right now, you're sitting on something that used to be useful. It's called your coccyx, or tailbone, and it's basically a vestigial monument to a decision your ancestors made millions of years ago. You feel it every time you sit on a hard chair for too long. You feel it if you fall backward. It serves almost no purpose in your body, but it's still there, still taking up space, still reminding you that your body is carrying around the skeleton of a tail that used to move. Here's the thing nobody talks about. This wasn't a gradual fade. We didn't slowly lose our tails over millions of years, like some feature naturally atrophying. The evidence suggests something much weirder happened. Around 25 to 15 million years ago, in the forest of Africa, a group of apes made a choice. Not consciously, but evolutionarily. They stood up. They started walking on 2 legs instead of 4, and once you commit to that, a tail becomes a liability instead of an asset. Let's talk about why tails are useful in the first place. If you watch any 4-legged animal move, the tail is doing constant work. A cat uses its tail to balance when running at full speed. A monkey uses it to hang from branches, to communicate with other monkeys, to distribute body weight across surfaces. A dog uses its tail as a rudder when turning, a counterbalance when accelerating. For 4-legged creatures, a tail is essential. It's like having a built-in tool that never gets left behind. But if you're going to walk upright, if you're going to become a biped, everything changes. Bipedalism is an insane commitment as an evolutionary strategy. You're giving up the stability of 4 limbs for the speed and visibility of 2. You're raising your body higher off the ground, which means you can see predators coming from farther away. You can carry things. You can use weapons. You can spot resources from a distance. You can also spot potential mates from across a gathering. These are huge advantages. But you're also sacrificing the use of your front limbs for balance, and that's where the tail problem gets real. When you're a quadruped, your tail works hard every second. It counterbalances your body weight. It helps you turn at high speeds without falling over. It's essential to your survival. But when you're standing upright on 2 legs, everything changes. Your center of gravity is completely different now. You're balancing over 2 small contact points instead of 4. A tail hanging off the end of your spine would actually make that balance worse, not better. It would swing around every time you moved, throwing your center of gravity off. It would get in the way when you sat down. It would catch on branches when you were moving through dense forest. It would be heavier to lift and carry around all day. It would require constant neural computation just to keep it from smacking into things or getting tangled up. And all of that is expensive. Energy is precious when you're an early human trying to survive. But here's where it gets really weird. Somewhere in the evolutionary timeline, humans didn't just stop using our tails. We started actively losing the genetic code to grow them. Fossil evidence from early human ancestors shows the gradual shortening of the tailbone over millions of years. By the time you get to the earliest hominins, the tail is already basically gone. What's left is a vestigial stub we call the coccyx, and it's still there in your spine right now. You can feel it if you press on the bottom of your tailbone. The skeletal evidence is pretty clear on what happened. Paleontologists have traced the fossil record of our ancestors going back millions of years, and you can literally watch the tail get shorter in the bones. Early apes had long, functional tails with dozens of vertebrae. As you move forward in time toward the human lineage, the tail gets progressively smaller. By the time you get to early hominins like Australopithecus, the tail is barely there. The vertebrae at the end of the spine, which would have been flexible tail vertebrae in our 4-legged ancestors, fused together into a solid bone. That's why your coccyx doesn't move. It's not a functioning tail, it's a fossil. It's proof of the deal we made, written in bone. And what a deal it was. We traded in mobility and agility for visibility and reach. We gave up a precision balance tool for the ability to see threats from farther away. We sacrificed the ability to move as quickly through dense forest for the ability to move bipedally across open grassland. We're talking about a fundamental shift in how the human body works, and the tailbone is just the most obvious leftover from the before times. The anatomical changes didn't stop at losing the tail either. Your spine had to completely restructure. Your pelvis had to completely restructure. The curves in your spine, the way your hip joints are angled, the shape of your sacrum, the way your legs attach to your torso, all of that had to change to support a vertical body weight instead of a horizontal one. And the coccyx, the tailbone, is basically a reminder of that whole transition. Here's the disturbing part. We're still paying the price for that trade-off. Your spine, by the design standards of modern life, is a disaster. We have back pain at epidemic levels. 80% of adults will experience significant back pain at some point in their lives. We have herniated discs, we have sciatica, we have spondylosis and degenerative disc disease. All of this traces back to the fact that our spine wasn't originally designed to support our body weight vertically for hours at a time, sitting in chairs and standing at desks. Our spine was designed for bipedal movement through forests and grasslands, not for the sustained vertical compression of office work. Our ancestors traded a perfectly functional tail for the ability to stand up and see predators and reach resources. And now our entire nervous system is paying for it in a world that doesn't have predators anymore. And the tailbone itself, it's basically useless now. Some medical professionals think it might be involved in pelvic floor support, but it's not essential. You could theoretically have your coccyx removed and survive just fine. In fact, some people have done exactly that after injuries or chronic pain. The tailbone is just hanging there, a skeletal relic of a different body plan. The weird thing is that the genes for tail growth aren't actually gone from our DNA. They're dormant. Humans are occasionally born with what's called a vestigial tail, an actual small tail made of skin and fat and sometimes even muscle tissue. It's usually surgically removed, but it's proof that the genetic code is still there, just turned off. We didn't lose the ability to grow tails. We just stopped activating it millions of years ago. Evolutionary biologists think the selective pressure was intense enough that any human ancestor who carried a genetic mutation for tail growth got selected against. Not because tails were actively harmful, but because the energy cost of growing and maintaining a useless appendage, combined with the space and coordination it would take up, just wasn't worth it. Evolution is ruthlessly efficient. If you're not using something, you pay a cost to maintain it. Better to get rid of it. But here's the thing that really gets at me. This trade-off might have been exactly right for the environment our ancestors evolved in. Bipedalism worked. We became the dominant primate on the planet. We developed tools, language, complex societies. All of that was enabled by the fact that we stood up and looked around and had our hands free to do things. The loss of our tail was the price we paid for consciousness itself in a weird way. Except now we're living in a completely different world. We're not hunting on the African savanna anymore. We're sitting in office chairs. We're driving cars. We're spending 12 hours a day on devices. And our body, the one we optimized for bipedal hunting, is catastrophically misaligned with what modern life demands. We traded a tail for the ability to see predators coming. Now we're in a world with no predators, and we're stuck with a spine that wasn't designed for this kind of sedentary existence. The coccyx, that little bone at the end of your spine, is basically a physical record of that evolutionary gamble. It's a reminder that we didn't gradually change into what we are now. We made a choice, an unconscious genetic choice, but a choice nonetheless. We stood up. We said goodbye to the tail. We became human. And we're still living with the consequences. So the next time you sit down too hard and feel that little jolt of pain at the base of your spine, remember, that's not just your tailbone hurting. That's 25 million years of evolutionary history reminding you that your ancestors made a trade-off that nobody asked for. We gave up balance and agility for visibility and reach. We gave up a perfectly functional tail for the ability to see over tall grass and carry weapons and point and gesture and eventually write and build civilizations. We gave up a tool for something stranger, consciousness, language, abstract thought. And now we're stuck with the vestigial evidence of that deal, literally sitting right at the base of our spine. Evolution doesn't fix past mistakes. It just leaves the wreckage behind, and we walk around on top of it.